down in the dumps, have no idea how you're going to get out of a situation, and he could just pop up with an answer, and he will, but it's in his timing, not ours. So I love singing about who he is. But enough about that. So I just want to thank you all for being here. And again, if you feel led to give tithes, we have our basket, we have our church phone number through Apple Pay, we have Cash App. You just go by the Spirit's leading if you feel that you need to tithe. We did have a slide, but before I announce, okay, here we go. The church phone number is 813. I should have this memorized. 573-7078, and the Cash App is $House for Healing. So thank you again for tithing. It helps with so many things: food, lights, everything you can imagine. So before I announce our speaker, I would just like to begin with a word of prayer. So if you'd like to bow your heads with me. Holy Spirit, thank you for being you, and I thank you for being here, for meeting the needs of everybody that is here, everybody that is watching. Father, I pray that you just prepare their hearts, prepare their minds and their spirits to just accept and hear and listen and fully internalize everything that you're going to be saying to them. Lord, I pray that nothing, no distraction, no pride, no guilt, no fear, nothing, doubt will get in the way of what you want to say and what you want to do today. Father, I pray you show up in a miraculous way that only you can, and that you would speak exactly through our pastor what you need her to say, whether it's what she's written or not, Father. And I thank you that everyone will have a fantastic day and be safe throughout their week, and just seek you in everything they do. In Jesus' name, amen. So without further ado, I'd like to announce Pastor Susan Sampson.
Good morning, everyone. Children going to children's church. Have fun. You're welcome. So, Matthew, can you put up that slide, please? So this week I spent going through, title of the message is Emotional Pain and Forgiveness. And I went through this whole week of how am I going to put this together? How is this going to come together? How? I went through so many different things. Finally, I came up with a nice set plan. Okay. It was great. It was a nice plan. I have it all laid out, 2 pages right here. It's real great. And then Saturday morning came. And then he just took it and he just did what he needed to do with it. So I woke up Saturday morning with this picture. This picture was all over me when I woke up Saturday morning. Okay? So this picture is by a painter named Young Sing Kim. I hope I didn't mess that up. So sorry if I did. It's titled The Hand of God. Okay? And for those of you, I'm going to just, if you look at it really well, it comes from the background of when Peter was called out from the boat to walk on the water, and Jesus was walking on the water, and, you know, he had doubts. Peter had doubts, and he began to sink. Okay? When I woke up and God started speaking to me about this painting, it wasn't about Peter at that moment. Okay? It was about something else. Okay? And this is where it plays into emotional pain and forgiveness. You see this? The water? He's above the water. And he's reaching for somebody who's below the water. Okay? When you're in pain and you're going through things and you're going through some emotional stuff, you're in the water. Do you understand? You are in there. You're submerged in the water. His feet, you can see how his feet, it shows his feet standing on the water. That shows the power that he has, that he can stand on water. In other words, he has the strength. He has the will. He has the ability. He has the grace. He has the love. He has the authority to defy all things, okay? Including water. He can walk across water. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I try to walk, and I don't walk across water, I sink. Many times I feel like that. When I go out into the ocean, I feel like I just be drawn into it. Or, I just like to walk on it. But I'm not Jesus, so I can't do that. But he can. And there it is. He pushes through the water to get to you, to pull you up from where you are. Ladies and gentlemen, this sermon is going to be about admitting truth about where you are and allowing Jesus Christ to pull you out from where you are. When you stand and you say, I am serving Christ and everything else, it's great and it's beautiful and it looks good. And guess what? You're going to church and you're playing on the piano, or you're singing in the choir, or you're doing children's church, or you're a greeter and everything else. You're doing all the routines. But this is the thing, you're not working on the relationship between you and God. And you think you are because you're doing all those things. But relationship comes by talking, by being truthful, by communicating. How do I know that? It happens in relationships, right? When you have somebody who is in a relationship, I'm going to use marriage. When you get married, the first year, they call it the honeymoon. Everybody's happy. Everybody looks beautiful. Everybody's perfect. And then you hear the words, the honeymoon is over. Okay? Because then at that point, you get to learn about the person, right? My grandmother always used to tell me, now, mind you, my family, it's not from this country. We are Caribbean people, West Indian culture. And so my grandmother came to this country and they had to relearn a lot. They had to learn certain things that, or relearn some things, because there are things different here in America than it is from our culture. But my grandmother used to say to me this. She used to tell me, the grass always looks greener on the other side, but come see me and come live with me are two different things. In other words, it looks great. But when you live with the person every day, you get to learn some things about that person. You get to learn some things about yourself. Because that person knows how to push some buttons, and then you start pushing back and it gets beautiful. It's great. But this is the thing. You learn about each other. You see, in this walk with Christ, it's a little one-sided, okay? Because he knows everything about us. It is us that don't know everything about him. Okay? It is him who stretches through the water to say, here, come take my hand. And it is us that say sometimes, no, thank you, I can do it on my own. It is a one-sided relationship. When you grow in your marriage, after 7 years, they said if you haven't killed each other and you get over that 7-year hump, right, it's pretty good, because at that point, it couldn't break apart, or it can move on. You get past the 7 years, that's great. But guess what? You weren't the same when you first got married. That 7 years, you've learned some things. You've grown. Your relationship has gotten stronger. Let's talk about 15 years. Well, guess what? You're even more different than you were 7 years. Let's talk about 25 years. Oh my goodness, you start like sounding like each other. Like, it's just like, it's weird. You know what I mean? You even start looking like each other. 50 years. They're like this, okay? I mean, one moves, the other one moves. If one gets sick, the other one is worried to death about the other one. But it wasn't an easy process to get to that place, okay? But they learned. Well, that's what God is trying to say to everyone, okay? He already knows. He has an advantage. He knows everything about you. He needs you to join in this relationship to grow. Okay? And just because you do church every week and everything else, that doesn't mean you're growing in your relationship. I have watched people serve in church and they are so much in bondage of the emotional pain that they have gone through from their past. They think they're fine. And you know what they use these words? They always turn around and say, no, I'm good. I forgave. No, you didn't forgive. What you did is that you buried it. You made excuses for it. And you said, oh yeah, I forgive them. And that's it. But you really didn't put much thought into it. When you carry so much emotional pain, hurting people hurt. You will pass on some things to your children, even to your mate that you're with, okay? So if you were a woman that, I don't know, like went through an alcoholic father that used to abuse you, well, you get married, you're going to be very defensive with your husband. If you came from a father that cheated, you're going to think that your husband's going to constantly cheat on you. And vice versa. It's not only just women, men think like this too. If you came out of prior relationship and the prior relationship, the person cheated on you, you're going to take that baggage into the next relationship. Okay? So it's emotional baggage that you're taking from one place to the other to the other. But God wants us to break that. And in doing that, He wants me to tell a story. It's a true story. It's my story. It's not in total details, but you won't get to know everything about me, but it's just a slight glimpse into my beginning years. So my mom came to this country when she was an adult. She was a young adult, but still she was an adult. When you're in a foreign country, back in the days, especially, not nowadays because it's different. We have internet and everything else, and you have a better familiar what different places look like and how they act, right? Based upon what you can see from researching. But back in the 70s, late 60s, we didn't have all that. So my mom came to this country with the expectation, this was the land of the rich and free. You come here, you're going to make money, you're going to make me successful, you're going to do great things, blah, 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 all these different things. She just saw that she would get better. And you know what? That is absolutely a natural thing to think, especially back then. What she didn't realize is that when she come over here to the United States, she was going to meet up with so much racism. Okay? So much prejudice against foreigners. Now, I'm going to tell you, back in the days, when you heard about our types of food, our food consists of what people really know about now is they call it islander food. I love that when they say that. I love the islander food. That's really nice. We just call it food. Okay? The curry and the roti and all the, and by the way, we say it differently and different parts call it different things. But people know it now and they're okay with it now. And some people like, oh, I love island food and all this other stuff. But back then, we were told that our food is disgusting. That we're dirty, we're this, we're that. I mean, really, like my mother had to work on not showing her accent. So she had to silence who she really is, her nature, her way of living, because the outside world in the United States was being abusive to her and telling her that it's disgusting. Okay, so before she went through that, she went through going through a divorce at a young age. So here it is. She gets married at 18. She has a baby at 19, and she's practically divorced by the time she hits 22. My mother came home to a house empty. My father took everything. Everything. I need you to understand this. My entire family are West Indians. My step parents, everything. Aunts, uncles, everything. I am first generation in this country. So you're talking about their way of life, the way they are, came over, the same mindset came over. They're here. They feel attacked and threatened and so forth. But here it is. My father turns around and wipes the house out. Leaves her only the clothes that she has for herself and for me. I was only 1.5 years old. That was it. I was just a baby. I remember my mom telling the stories of when she came home and she saw what was going on and she realized what happened, and it wasn't that she was robbed. Something broke inside my mom. Something broke. She said at that point she felt like just jumping out the window. But she said something stopped her. I believe the something is called Jesus. The Holy Spirit stopped her. Okay? And did not let her go and do that. She had an emotional break. It was so hard for her to understand. And I'm going to tell you something. The furniture was all taken. She was still making payments on the furniture. So she had to make payments on something she didn't even have. So now she becomes a single mom in a foreign country that doesn't like her. The devastation that she went through, I can't even imagine. It took strength for her to raise myself. But along the way, because she was broken and my mother didn't come from a good childhood and she didn't feel loved, so she had expectation, right? She came over, she said she's going to have a different life. She's going to have her husband, she's going to have her child or more children. There's a thing that she built in her mind of where she was going to create love for herself, to be loved and for her to give love. All of that got blown up after my father left. So now she's here with this child that is very different, not like what she was expecting. Okay? And when I say different, is that I had a very strong will. I pulled a lot of my father, but I also pulled a lot of her. But she didn't see that part. She didn't see where I pulled a lot of her as well. She only saw my father. And with that, I dealt with a lot of emotional baggage that came from her. So every time she saw me, she saw my father, and I went through it. I went through the beatings, I went through the yelling, I went through the screaming, and those are the things that she was doing because she was frustrated and she was broken. And the people that she started dating and she was with, and she finally settled on this one man that I called him my stepfather, but he never married her, so he was really my mother's boyfriend. That's the plain and simple truth. She had 2 children with him. As I became older, she used to verbally insult me, put me down, but all of this was out of her pain, okay, and her frustration. I never heard once, "I love you," from my mother. I don't even remember getting a hug from my mother. But I do remember the insults and the put downs and the beatings. I do remember those. When I became, as a teenager, she couldn't handle, I was very strong-willed, and determined person, as I still am. But she couldn't handle it. So what she did is that she allowed her boyfriend to discipline me. Well, let me tell you what discipline looked like. A punch in the face. That's what discipline looked like. I was punched up. There was one time I was beaten up. He used his fist to punch because I did something wrong. They didn't like it. They pulled me in, threw me down on the floor. He took a baby's object, a baby TV, a plastic, and he beat me and beat me and beat me with that object. And then he went ahead and punched and punched and punched me. And in the midst of all of that, I heard God. I got you, Susan. I got you, Susan. I got you, Susan. I got you. In the midst of all of that, I could hear him. See, what my mother didn't know is that I had an encounter with God at 5 years old, and I was steadily talking to him throughout my life. She had no idea. We didn't go to church because she rebelled against church. She rebelled against what people did with the church and how they responded. So she rebelled against God because, of course, she identified God with the people. By the way, two different things. Jesus is totally different than human beings and their thoughts and ideas of who God really is. So with that, my mother took all of her pain and anger and so forth, and she put it on me. And she beat me sometimes. And there were times which she didn't know that I had some gifts that I could look into her eyes, and I saw. There was times when I looked into her eyes and I saw like almost if she could, she would just make me disappear. You know, it's really hard to look inside of a mother's eyes and see such anger and anguish. But every time she looked at me, she saw my father. My mother didn't deal with her pain from the way she grew up. She didn't deal with the pain from my father. She didn't deal with the pain from being here in the United States. All that emotional pain, my mother didn't deal with it. She kept it all inside. And that's what happens. You keep things inside, and then you burst out, and you affect other people. How does that look? You hit them, you insult them, you try to control them, you say all these different things to them. And that's what my mother did. Now, a few weeks ago, I talked to everybody about how God had me forgive her boyfriend for what he did to me. And I did. And then God told me I had to admit what he did. And then I had to go ahead and forgive him. And then I had to turn around and pray for him. And God went ahead and he had me do that. But let me tell you the next step that he had me do. I had to forgive my mother for choosing this man over me. She wanted him to discipline me. She never stopped it. When he was beating me up that day, I remember he just went on and on. It just felt like it was never going to end. And all of a sudden in my hearing, I heard my mother say this, "Okay, that's enough." And I remember saying, "That's enough? That's enough?" Which what it did, it built anger and hostility and bitterness and all this emotional pain inside of me. God had to take me down a road of forgiving my mother for allowing certain things to happen. You know, I said to God one day, I said, "Lord, you made a mistake. I know you don't make mistakes, but I'm just telling you, you made a mistake." I was 11 years old when I told him this. I said to him, "I don't belong here. My father doesn't make me feel like He wants me. My mother, she has this new family now. I always felt like an outsider. Always. I never felt like I belonged to that family, to any family. I never felt like I did. The only person that made me feel just a little bit of belonging was my grandmother. But this is the same woman that she had a bad relationship with, so I wasn't allowed to see my grandmother sometimes. Now, I'm not going to tell you that my grandmother was perfect, because she was not, and she has even a huge story as well. And my grandmother went through some horrible things. And her anger and her emotional baggage, her pain, she took it and put it on her children, especially my mother. So do you see the pattern? This to this to this. Let me tell you what was different after my mother and it got to me. What was different was that I heard God. God had an encounter with me, several, throughout my life. And I said to him, I don't want to become like them. I don't want to do the same thing to my children. So I declare now that it will not happen. And I was just a child when I did that. I didn't even know what declare means. But I knew that that was something that I was being told to do, to declare that it ends here. It doesn't go any further. My mom, and I need to make very careful, I need to make something very clear, and I want to be very careful about my words. I'm not telling you all this for you to paint the picture that my mother was a horrible person. My mother actually is a broken bird. She's a broken bird. She really does have incredible gifts and things like that. I've gotten a lot of them from her. I'm not saying these things to dishonor my mother. I'm saying that because it's truth, and God wants me to talk about them. My mother created this wedge between her and I because of her pain that she went through. Okay? And because of that, I did not grow up with a bond with my mother. Now, I never lied to myself about who my mother was. I never lied to myself about who my grandmother really was. I never lied to myself. I saw it for what it was because God would talk to me about it. And again, my mother does not know anything about that. She has no idea. She doesn't even know what I do for a living. She doesn't know anything. Which is sad when you don't know your child. But what's incredible is that Jesus knows us, right? And he wants us to come out of a place of bondage, and he wants us to reach back. He's saying, take my hand. Take my hand. And he says it all the time, every day. But you know what happens? We get in our minds that we know better. Listen, you can't know better than him. He knows everything about us. Everything. You want to know how I know? Well, scripture says it. Jeremiah 1, 4-5. Before I formed you in the womb, before he formed us in the womb. That's going way back, okay? Way, way back. You can't even say you know your child before they were in the womb. He can say that. Before I formed you in the womb, before then, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. God spoke those words to me when I was young. He said to me, you have a destiny and I've set you apart. Well, I didn't really believe that because I was 11 years old. I knew he was talking and everything else, but you know, what I was seeing was a whole lot different than what I was hearing. And what I saw was constant abuse. What I was seeing was constant put down. What I was hearing, I felt like, so this is thing called, we have a counselor that comes here, so she's taught me a lot about the middle child syndrome. The middle child syndrome is, okay, so the older one is the firstborn to get all of this attention, blah, 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 and everything else, right? The last one, right, is the baby of the family, and they get the little coddling and everything. But the middle one is the one that kind of gets through the cracks. They feel like, I'm not here. I'm not here. They feel like they are, like, I guess, just so different from the other two. They feel misunderstood. They feel invisible. They don't have a voice. Well, you know, I felt all those things, and I wasn't a middle child. I went through all those things, and I felt all those things. God was saying to me that you are different, but I couldn't see all of that because of the way I felt. Now, I did see the siblings on the other side, my father's side and my mother's side. They were treated far differently from me. So they got favored, and I did not. But yet I kept hearing, I've made you for a purpose, and I've set you aside for a reason. I had to hold on. I didn't even know how I made it through, to be perfectly honest, except for the fact that I held on to him. And I did. I didn't hold on to a Jesus that people told me about. I held on to a Jesus that introduced himself to me and said, I am here. Take my hand, because I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. When I made a decision at a young age not to pass on what was shown to me, I made a decision to break a cycle. And I did not realize I was doing that. But I have. I love my children. I hug my children. I kiss my children. I tell my children I love them. They will never, ever feel like they were not wanted. I always call my children my little miracles, my little angels, because they saved my life, and I always said that. They did. I focused on them, and I focused on changing because of them. I wanted to do better than what I got. I am not knocking my mother. My mother was broken. She did not know any better. I sat with God and I said to him, she hates me. He said, no, she doesn't. I said, I'm just saying, did you see what I went through there? I'm thinking she hates me. And he said, Susan, she does not. I know you've always felt like she's hated you, but she does not hate you. She actually loves you. She actually admires you. She actually is jealous of the strength that you have. But when somebody is broken, they can't see past their pain. She doesn't even realize what she has done to you. A part of her knows, but that part of really acknowledging no, you know why? Because she buried it. And this is what God is showing me, that she buried it. So he told me, you have to forgive her. And after I forgave my mother, I first admitted what she did. I first admitted how it made me feel. Then I forgave her. And then I prayed for her. And when I did that, I was able to see things from her perspective. God was able to show me what she was going through coming to this country, going through what she did, being abandoned. She wasn't just abandoned by my father. She was abandoned even when she was a young girl. She felt abandonment. She felt abandonment. That's what she felt. That's what was ruling her. That was what's controlling her. She had fear. He showed me the whole thing of where she is. Even she is still to this day in that same spot. I'm here to tell you that there's some of you that are watching this, and I'm here to tell you, you're in a place. You think you're okay, but you're not. That parent, that mother that used to insult you, put you down, say this, this, and this, you have not confronted what she did. You did not confront how you felt. You did not acknowledge how you felt, and you did not go ahead and walk them to the cross and forgive them. You didn't do that. But it's time to do that. And doing that means you reach your hand out and you hold on to him. And you say that, stop lying to yourself about who that person was to you. Okay, granted, they may be dead and gone, but that doesn't mean that you're dishonoring the person when you admit truth. You are admitting truth. That is not dishonor. That is God. God is truth. Admit that. Because God knows the truth. He's going to tell you the truth. Believe me, the person that died, they heard the truth already. You're not harming them. You're not dishonoring them. But what you are doing is keeping yourself in bondage about what happened to you when you were a child. And maybe it's not your mother. Maybe it's your father. Maybe it's a sibling. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's an old boyfriend. I don't know who it is, but whatever it is that has you in bondage, that has you underneath the water, God is placing his hand in the water and he's trying to pull you up. I'm sorry, people. You cannot do it on your own. You cannot. You need Jesus, and you need to stop saying, I am fine. I am fine. You're not. He knows the truth about what's going on in you. The only person you're lying to is yourself. That is the only person you're lying to. You must confront truth. You must deal with the emotional pain. You must go ahead, release it, and forgive. You must. In order for you to grow in the relationship. Your relationship is hindered even with God because you're holding all these things inside. Your relationship is hindered even with your children because of what you're holding inside. Your relationships are hindered with your marriage because of what you're holding inside. Forgive. And the biggest forgiveness that you have to do is for yourself. Some of you need to forgive yourself. If you were the abuser, you need to forgive yourself. If you did some abuse, if you went ahead and received the abuse, but you feel guilty that you should have fought back, you have to forgive yourself because you couldn't fight back. You were a child. You have to forgive yourself. You have to take it to God in prayer. Leave it in God's hands. Forgive and then let it go. Then you can let it go when you confront truth. Jeremiah 31:3. I have loved you with everlasting love. I have drawn you with loving kindness. Listen to me. You can't even put it together in your mind, the depths of love that Jesus has for you. He's running after you. He's always been there. For those who've been sexually assaulted and you want to know why, I'm here to tell you, God was saying, stop, 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 don't. But that person was bogged down with whatever was going on in them and in their life, and they were determined to cause harm to you. I know for a fact that he said something about beating me. I know that because he was right there with me telling me I was there with you. So if he's there with me, then why wouldn't he say something to them? But when they're in bondage in their mind, they're not hearing him. They do not hear. So they keep the assault going on. I'm sorry, but I don't want to do that. I don't want other people to do that. So I stand there and I do what I'm supposed to do. I take it to him. Look at this face that looks through the water to you. There's a smile. There is a love that says, I love you. Please take my hand. Stop lying to yourself. This whole week, I kept hearing somebody sobbing and crying. Somebody over Facebook or YouTube, I don't know who, but you're lying to yourself about the way you grew up. Maybe you had a father that was there, but he was like absentee. He did not connect with you. Admit the truth. Maybe you had a mother that went ahead and put you down all the time and said some things to you. Admit the truth. I heard the sobbing this week. I heard the sobbing of the people. That's all I could hear is the sobbing of people who lied to themselves about where they really came from. There's some people that went ahead and unfortunately you do not have a close relationship with your child. I had dinner with a friend of mine yesterday and she was talking about her mother, and she said that she wanted to get, like, they were able to recapture back their bond that they had, right? I forgot the exact words that she used, but basically it was to pick it back up. And I said to her, do you hear what you just said? And because it sat so heavily inside of me, even though there was a strain in the relationship, before her mother died, they were able to recapture their bond again. Well, I just thought that was absolutely beautiful. But do you know what I realized? That I never bonded with my mother. My mother was too hurt and broken to bond with me. She lived in her pain. But I was determined not to do that with my children. I bonded with my kids. When anything is going wrong with my kids, I know it, and they know I know, and they know I will fight to get to wherever they are. They know I will hug them in their worst places. I will tell them that they are destined to do great things. I will speak life into them. I will go ahead and I will love on them, and I will do all these different things. Let me tell you something, and it's not only my biological children. I do it to anybody that I really bond to. I have a daughter-in-law that I have bond to her, and there are times when she goes through things and God has me just speak life over her, speak love over her, just love on her. I will do it. And let me just tell you this, I really don't like hugging. I don't. For those of you that are watching on Facebook, the reason why people laughed here is because I hug all the time. That's because I allow God to change me. It still makes me feel uncomfortable. It does. I've had people tell me that you're beautiful and things like that, and it makes me uncomfortable because I didn't grow up hearing it. I didn't grow up hearing that I am beautiful. I did not grow up hearing that I am unique, except for my grandmother. Now, my grandmother did, but I wasn't around her often. I didn't have a mother to tell me, you are destined to do great things. You are this, you are that. Instead, I had God say it to me, and he had strangers come up to me in the street, which I swear they were angels, because they would just disappear, that would tell me, you are destined to do things for God. You have a destiny. Do not allow other people to tell you that you don't. I never would imagine I would be doing this. I never saw that coming at all. But God wanted me to share that story because somebody else out there has a similar story. It may not be exact, but I'm telling you that you came from a place of a broken parent, and they hurt you. Please take the time to admit it. Please, 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 please. Do not let your past control your present and your future. And don't sit there and lie to yourself. Listen to me. There are people that even died that you probably didn't even have a bad relationship with them or anything like that, but you're just angry at the fact that they died. It's okay. It's okay to be angry at them. It's not okay to live there. So you admit it. I'm angry that you left me, but I love you. And I know one day I'll see you again. And release it to God. Take his hand and walk away with him. Take his hand and embrace what he wants for you. I have one more story before I wrap it up. And I'm going to speak to the spirit of depression right now. I went through a time in my life where a lot of things just went wrong. My gosh, it was so many things, like one thing after the other. And I went through a long period of this, right? And I still held on to God. But I had this one thing happen, right? And it was just one more thing on top of a whole bunch of other things that happened. And I said, God, I can't. I just can't no more. I just can't. And I went into a place of depression. I lost everything. He told me to move in here with my children. He gave me a command to move in here with my kids. And I've always been independent. I do not like living at somebody else's house. I really don't. I like having my own. But he told me to do all this. I didn't know what it was all for. I just felt lost. I felt like I kept losing and losing and losing and losing and losing and losing. And I fell into this place of depression. And I sat there and I just laid in my bed. I closed my eyes and I just said, why don't you just take me? Because I just don't see anything else that I have to do here. I said, why don't you just take me? Just take me. And I was just lying there and I was just sobbing, and out of nowhere it was just this beam of light that came. And I felt like I was on this cliff and I fell. And it was like this hole I was falling into, and I just fell, and I felt myself falling and falling. And all of this is happening while I'm laying in bed, and I was just in such a bad place. I felt myself falling, and all of a sudden I saw this light, and this light came flashing right through. Out the light was the hand. I saw this hand come right out and snatch me. And I heard his voice say, no, Susan, I'm never letting you go. Hold on. Take my hand. And I had to take my other hand and hold him. And there he pulled me right out. And when I say right out, it was like almost like the depression just left me. He pulled me right out and right to him. And he said to me, I want you to tell the people, I have been trying so hard to pull them out of where they are, but they keep wanting to fall into that abyss of depression. I've been trying to pull them out. They have to take the other hand and hold on and allow me to pull. See, God can stretch his hand out to you, but you must take it. Well, I took it because, in all honesty, I didn't want to fall into an abyss of depression. I don't. But I didn't know where else to go, and I was just like so tired and run down and everything else, and did not know that he had a bigger purpose for me being here. After he pulled me out of that abyss of that depression, couple of months went on, and then my sister died. And my children gained custody of her little girl. They became instant parents. And instant parents now, they had to learn, well, he told me I was placed here. I had to give up everything to help them adjust to being parents. You see, but I didn't know the plan. I didn't know that there was something more, but that was the reason here. I was to help my daughter-in-law understand how to be a mom and to do certain things and to do her hair and talk to her and so forth. I had to help my son go ahead and communicate and do this and do that, because you see, they didn't get her from an infant and learn to go ahead how to be with her. They got her at 3 years old. So they had to understand and learn about a 3-year-old. So they, guess what? God wanted me to teach them. So he had me give up everything to prepare them for this new child coming here. You see, God has a bigger plan. Even when we don't understand it and we don't know why we went through the things that we've gone through, he has a better plan. He has a bigger plan. I didn't go through abuse for nothing. I went through to tell my story. I went through to tell somebody that you can get over to the other side. I went through the things that I did to have a testimony. I went through because God ordained that I had a future, that I have something to say, that I will do better, that I will go forward. He had a better plan. He took something bad and turned it into good. But if you don't admit truth to yourself, if you don't take his hand, if you don't reach for him, you will not allow him to turn the bad into good. You won't allow him to set you free. And that's what this is about. This is about being set free. It's time. Stop lying to yourself. Admit truth. And even if you don't understand what it is, stop and ask God, does this message apply to me? Show me. Show me if I've been lying to myself. Because sometimes you don't even realize, because you become a professional liar. You've become a professional liar to yourself. So you don't even know. I've watched people, when I tell them, you're lying to yourself about this, they're like, no. I say, oh yeah, you are. And you know what? In that instant, God shows them, or they take them somewhere, or whatever happens. And at that moment, that's when it breaks and they cry because they realize they have been lying to themselves. But you turned into a professional liar to yourself. So sometimes God has to break through that to give you truth. Allow God's hand to break through. Allow the one that died on the cross, that he went through a real beating. My beating came nothing close to the beating he went through. His beating was real bad. Okay, it was real bad. I don't think I could survive it. But he did. He survived the beating. He died on the cross and he rose again for us. He is truly the way and the light. He is the one that has endured everything. He died for us to be free, so why won't we accept the freedom? Why? Why do we want to sit there and be stubborn? Why? Why do we want to speak that to ourselves and stay in a place of bondage? You stay in a place of loneliness. Why? Because you don't want to admit the truth that you need to change? You need to change. And you need to let God change you. You need to get away from things that are making you get distracted. I don't know if it's somebody here or if it's somebody over there, but I'm hearing God say, you need to get out of the video games already and come into reality. Come into reality about who you are. Come into reality about what he wants for you. He doesn't want you to spend your life doing video games. He wants you to go ahead and fulfill his purpose. Get up off of your seat of doing nothing and do something. Fight for life. He gave it to you. Fight for life. Take his hand. Take his hand. Stop hiding from the world in video games. Stop hiding from the world with Facebook. Stop hiding from the world and face life. Take his hand. Now here for House for Healing, it's named House for Healing for a reason. And it's House for Healing for the nations because that's where we're going. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to get there, but that's what he said. And I believe that and I stand on it. But I'm here to tell you, I have not been placed here to sugarcoat things. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And I'm not going to sit down here and play, oh my goodness, this, that. I don't do that. I'm sorry, but I don't. I'm going to tell you what truth is in love. And the truth is that you need him. You need him. You need to forgive. You need to admit. You need to move forward. You need to grow. My God, if a year from now, if I'm still in the same place in my mind and in my emotions, if I'm in the same place, I've done something wrong. I should be changing all the time. Because I reach back to him. And I do change all the time. I'm not the same person that I was last week. I'm not the same person that I was yesterday. I'm not the same person that I was a month ago. I'm not the same person that I was a year ago. I'm not the same person that I was 10 years ago. I'm not because of him. Because of him. Because of him. I'm not. And I don't want to be. I don't want to be in the same place, doing the same old thing and not growing in him. He wants you to grow. He wants you to learn. He wants you to go further. For the love of God, do it. Go further. I know this is a little different message from what I normally talk about, but I don't make any apologies for it. This is what he wanted. This is what he changed my whole message to. That's what he wanted me to focus. And, I love this painting so much that I want this painting. And, I told him, I said, I really want this. I want this to be a constant reminder. A constant reminder. And he said to me, you already know an artist already. And if you're listening, Stan, I'm going to commission you. This painting is incredible. And I want the artist that I've chosen, that when the time comes and God gives me the finances to go ahead and be able to ask the artist to do it for me, I want him to put his gifting in there, this spin, because he has a gifting. The artist that I know, he's Alana's father. He's gifted. Do you understand? When you look at his stuff, you see the hand of God in it. And he told me, he says, go to him. I woke up on Saturday and he says, you don't have to worry about buying this, Susan. Just ask him to do it. He said, when the time comes and you get the finances and you do what you have to do, because, and it's not because I can ask him and he won't do something for me. It's because I would like to go ahead and give him something to show my appreciation, to show that I have respect for what his gifting is. So I give an offering. So until I'm ready to give that offering to him, but I'm coming. I'm going to be asking because I love this painting. And I would love to see how he's going to make us put a spin on it or do something else. He's just so creative. He's incredible. What an incredible artist. And I'm not saying that because I love him also, because I really do. I love both him and his wife, Elaine. They're incredible people. They're loving people. And, and I know that they want to grow and they let themselves grow. So I'm going to end off by saying this. I'm going to say it in prayer. Don't forget him. Don't think you can get through life without him. Don't forget to talk to him every day. Just talk to him. Be truthful with him. Speak. So, Father, I just thank you for this time with you, Lord. Father, I pray that I did what you asked, Lord. I pray that I presented it the way you wanted me to present it, Lord. I pray that I didn't allow any type of outside interference to come in to hinder what you wanted to go forward. So, Father, I pray it meets the person where they are. I pray whoever listens to this, that they hear what you are saying and what you are trying to birth inside of them. Father, I thank you for the privilege and honor of being able to stand here and speak. I thank you that you speak through me. I thank you for those that are listening. I thank you that you never leave us nor forsake us. And I thank you that your hand never stops stretching out to us. I thank you for that, Lord, that your hand is always extended to us. Come here, my child. Come here. I thank you for that. And Father, I want to give you all the love and the glory that you deserve. Thank you. Thank you, because you do deserve so much more. And I pray that everybody here has a wonderful week, Lord, and that they seek you out. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Facebook, YouTube, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining us at House for Healing. We love you. And if you have any questions, real questions, not frivolous questions, real questions, please don't hesitate to type and say it. And we will get back to you. Somebody in the staff will get back to you, or I will get back to you. But feel free. Have a wonderful